And I believe we are live. Hello everyone and welcome to the second event of this year's Digital NXT. If you've missed the first session, don't worry, you'll be able to catch up on it by visiting our Digital NXT site, where the content will be uploaded shortly. In this session, Dan and I will be talking to you about our Managed Security Operations Centre, and we will also be updating you on the overall approach that we take and how we view the wider security journey. And as for all sessions this week, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat and we'll respond to them at the end of the session. Okay, so as a business that's founded by EMEA's first security MVP, I think it's fair to say that security is in our DNA. We've always focused on security and having built a secure from day one approach into all of our services, we ensure that it's built in from day one across our entire portfolio. We're a Microsoft Gold partner for security, and we have a suite of services specifically focused on cloud-based security, ranging from strategy through to our Security Operations Centre. And all of this is underpinned by our ISO 27001 and Cyber Essentials Plus accreditations and our NPPV3 vetted permanent UK-based staff. Trust me, that's a mouthful. Many of you will probably have heard the notion that the security perimeter has changed recently, with more and more organisations moving to the cloud. And due to the current climate, we've seen a huge period of change unfold for organisations that have been forced to adapt to new ways of working and delivering services, with new ways to share documents, new ways to interact through video conferencing, and new ways to access data that's now been moved to the cloud. This has meant an almost desperate need for improved and enhanced levels of control and governance over identities, security and compliance. And we've responded accordingly to the increased risk that this has placed on our clients. You really can't run a company without cybersecurity these days, and we've enhanced our service portfolio to include an end-to-end journey and a number of example scenarios for organisations operating security in the cloud. The aim being to help clients understand where they are today, where they need to be, how to get started, and how to maintain security in line with growing cybersecurity threats. So why is security important? I think anybody that pays close attention to the industry news will probably have a good idea already. And if I'm honest, I don't think I've ever been asked directly why security is important. I have often felt, though, that it's not enough of a priority. And I've also spoken to execs that see security as a barrier rather than something that is an extremely important thing to focus on. And you know, in reality, there's undoubtedly countless answers to this question, but what we wanted to do was to share some of our thoughts and some hopefully interesting insight into why we think it's important. Firstly, the growing complexity of digital estates, and with data growing increasingly more valuable and harder to protect, digital security has become an infinitely complex subject. As organisations move to the cloud, what and how they secure their identities, their data, their devices, and even their staff must be considered, and the fundamentals just need to be put in place. We've seen a number of shocking data breaches in the last year or two, where organisations just haven't got the basics right, or maybe they haven't educated their staff on the correct ways to manage and maintain security and to act in a secure manner when you're a modern organisation that's operating in the cloud. Secondly, if we think about relationships, customer relationships, much like managed services, are built on trust. And according to a recent Cisco cybersecurity report, they suggest that during a cyber attack, 20% of organisations lose customers and 30% lose revenue. That really highlights the need for a really strong security posture for your business. And then finally, many organisations have a multitude of different products and services that provide security for the business, but many of those don't actually integrate, or they're aging and no longer fit for purpose. So in addition to that, you've got threats that are becoming more sophisticated, and services that aren't integrated or kept up to date are likely to be unable to combat those emerging threats. We feel that a new perspective on security is needed, with a focus on what's best for your organisation, not what the best product on the market is. and that's for now and also in the future. Another thing that we like to talk to clients about is to consider consolidating down from many of those dispersed products to a few products, but also maintaining a focus that your specialized teams need to have the flexibility and the freedom to manage your security. That's the only way we think that you can really foster an effective security management approach. So another thing that we do as a business is we analyse the market quite heavily. We really do significant horizon scanning. We spend a lot of time talking to Microsoft and other organisations like Gartner. And what we've started to do is to analyse those trends, not just from those sources, but also from our client base. In light of the unprecedented demand that the pandemic's placed on organisations and their IT teams, we have seen a number of trends that were already there continue. But there's also some new trends that have appeared. I think secure remote workforce is probably the biggest trend that we've all been faced with, and that sees a stronger focus on the business requirements and a greater understanding of how users and groups access data and applications. And now that a few months have passed since the initial remote push, as a business, we really feel that it's time to perform a needs assessment and to review what's changed to determine if identity and access levels are correct and whether any security measures are actually impeding the way that you work. A common theme throughout all these trends is that we now need to consider how we balance security with productivity in the cloud. That is a key theme that you'll hear me talk about, and hopefully you'll pull from today. The next trend is CASB, which stands for Cloud Access Security Broker. Typically, we see cloud access controls done through a CASB. So what that does is it will offer real-time policy enforcement and active blocking. And again, thinking back to balancing security with productivity, a CASB offers flexibility because it allows you to start just by monitoring, and it will help you better ensure fidelity of the traffic, but it will also help you get a greater understanding of the security access levels that you have in place. A CASB is also really helpful because it will help you discover shadow IT. It can identify the risk levels of applications. You can constantly evaluate your compliance levels. You can analyze usage, govern all of your cloud applications, but it can also provide continuous monitoring as well. Passwordless is another trend which has really gathered pace. So the way we look at it is that whilst employees might not think twice about using the same password for their work computer as they do for personal emails, it can cause you significant headaches. So passwordless authentication can work in a few different ways, and it does really offer a better solution for security. And again, back to balancing security with productivity, the goal with passwordless and in general with security should always be to increase trust and improve the user experience. Interestingly, mentioned Gartner earlier, Gartner recently predicted that by 2022, 60% of large and global enterprises and 90% of small to mid-size enterprises will implement passwordless methods in more than 50% of use cases, which is significant. Information protection is an important trend, especially with the significant increase in adoption of cloud technologies with Office 365. I think it's really important to understand that not all data is the same, and a one-size-fits-all approach, which we may have had in the past, just simply won't cut it anymore. What we've seen with a lot of organisations is that one-size-fits-all approach either creates too much security in some areas and not enough in other areas, which actually just increases the risk for your organisation. What we recommend that you do is you start with policies and definitions and you get your processes right before you start to layer in some of those new security technologies. That really is an important first step when you're migrating to the cloud, or maybe just refining how you approach security in the cloud. And it's something we recommend is actually reviewed periodically as well to make sure that you're continually maintaining compliance. Skills, you're going to hear a lot about skills and adoption throughout this week, but skills is always an interesting topic, but one I think is becoming more of a trend in the last few years. What we're seeing is that organisations are starting to focus more on profiling for the roles that they need today, but reassessing the workforce to understand where their gap is in experience and knowledge, and how they can bridge that gap, and then providing the training and the knowledge to ensure that they're able to meet, manage and maintain security both now and hopefully in the future. And then finally, the topic of today's session is Security Operations Center. So interestingly, with the Security Operations Center, historically extremely expensive to do, but Microsoft technologies have made it much more effective, and with that have driven up the introduction of formal security operations centers or SOCs. I think understanding that security is a moving target is really important, and that another thing that we need to all understand is that executives are under increasing pressure to demonstrate back to the business that they can actually handle security as threats change and increase, and that is becoming more common as well. Another thing that's key is understanding that security is a team sport, and something that will impact the entire organisation. It's not just something for IT to focus on, it really is a business concern. And then by gearing internal programs and security approaches towards anticipation and reaction to frequent and unexpected changes, and understanding security and risk management will illustrate your ability to protect the organisation, but it will also make sure that you're constantly able to protect and manage against emerging threats. And that's no matter what happens within the business or even in the industry. So we recommend that that when you start to think about security and maybe you're introducing new technology, that you guide agile security planning and implementation and general operations that are day-to-day, that you develop a set of principles with the interested parties. So again, again, thinking about a team sport, you need to introduce this topic to people throughout the organization. And you're going to be talking about principles like focusing on business outcomes rather than just protecting infrastructure. Always consider the human element. So when you're designing and managing security, focus on the human element. So again, back to my point about balancing productivity with security, the human element is key. And then making sure that you conduct regular vulnerability assessments to make sure, again, you're staying compliant. And I think in doing that, and obviously there are more principles there, just some examples, but in doing that, you can really help continuously improve the effectiveness and the efficiency of the security controls that you have in place. So while there are a handful of trends and challenges that organizations face, I think one thing is common for all, and that's that identity, security and compliance are fundamental and foundational elements of a modern organization that's looking to thrive in the cloud. And we're really confident that the suite of services and solutions that we put together are well placed to help any organization in any industry achieve that. Over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Andrew. So yeah, we know that Microsoft has for a long time had a strong investment in security, over 1 billion a year, in fact. That's American dollars. For the benefit of those who aren't too familiar with the investment, we wanted to highlight the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture within our presentation today to demonstrate the breadth of security products and tools Microsoft currently have available in the market that cover both cloud and hybrid scenarios. On the screen, you may be able to spot 26 unique security products covering areas such as identity and access, cloud infrastructure, endpoint security, Office 365, and of course the Security Operations Center. risual have a number of implementation and assessment services to help our clients plan, implement, configure and maintain those services going forwards. And in a short while, Andrew will be explaining the offerings in further detail. Before moving on, I wanted to touch on a few of the technologies highlighted on screen in further detail, because there's a reason we're talking about the bigger picture here rather than just the SOC technologies highlighted in the upper left. The cybersecurity reference architecture highlights quite nicely how these technologies all integrate together relatively seamlessly. Andrew touched earlier on the growing complexity of digital estates, and it's this complexity that can often hamper your security response and overall posture. Having products that integrate together well is essential for providing that context behind a security event or alert. Being able to view a suspicious privileged activity from a compromised account in Azure ATP, and then linking that back to a login via a security appliance such as an Azure firewall, to then discover a risky signing from Azure AD identity protection, helps to build a really powerful picture as to what's caused them threats. Then taking it that step further, to have Office 365 reveal that the user was sent a phishing email, which was opened, and then Defender ATP to reveal a timeline of events that ultimately led to the breach on an end user's workstation. Plus you have Cloud App Security giving you a full activity log, including what files were accessed in OneDrive and SharePoint. All of that gives you that post-breach analysis, which in reality, could take a traditional SOC analyst weeks or months to find. So just to highlight, within the identity and access, we have Azure AD as the cornerstone of all operations. This is providing single sign-on to all your corporate apps under one identity. So we no longer need to have multiple accounts or multiple apps, all of which have different passwords that users need to remember. We also have passwordless authentication built in with Hello for Business, and strong two-factor auth with multi-factor authentication. Privileged access is taken care of with just-in-time, least privilege principle, granting admins with access only to what they need and when they need it using Azure AD PIM, so that's privileged identity management. But not only are we controlling who has access to our resources, but from where and under what conditions, and we're doing this via conditional access, which is enforcing controls such as allowing access only from compliant corporate policy controlled devices, or things like location-based settings, so only allowing access from a corporate office, for example. Moving on to our cloud infrastructure. We have our external facing services and internal facing services. Most organizations have this. For our external facing services, it's key to ensure that we're protecting these from common attacks such as SQL injection, which can be achieved via Azure Web Application Firewall, or even publishing them in a more secure way with something like Azure App Proxy. For our internal facing services, we're looking at ensuring that the network setup is configured correctly with network security groups and things like just enough admin is applied. And we're using things like Azure Bastion to log in and manage those. We're also looking at overall governance using Azure policy to ensure standards are being followed. Example of this is where virtual machines are being deployed. They automatically enroll in things like log analytics workspaces to capture security logs, and the Defender antivirus extension is enabled by default on all new virtual machines. Of course, using the Azure recovery services for backup and restore. Azure disk encryption and storage encryption helps to restore services and prevent data exfiltration. Sitting on top of all of this, we have the Azure Security Center for that configuration hygiene, and making use of the automatic recommendations in those for security configuration can often be done in a single click. And then, of course, there's the adaptive app control as well. Next, moving on to our endpoints. When we're looking at endpoints, we're making sure that our apps are being deployed securely and maintained using Microsoft Endpoint Manager, so controlling things like patch management and those kinds of things. And we're also making sure that we deploy the device hardening policy, which is made quite easily in Microsoft Endpoint Manager using readily available Microsoft security baselines. We also have the ability to remotely wipe devices should they become lost or stolen. On top of this, we're using Defender ATP to identify any threats, provide automatic investigations, and suggest configuration improvements. We also have our Office 365 security tools available. These are generally used for compliance and auditing. Using things like Azure Information Protection, we're ensuring that our data is classified correctly, enabling us to monitor and apply policy to particularly sensitive pieces of information. Office 365 ATP is ensuring that all documents and emails are scanned for threats before reaching end users. And then we have DLP policies, which is ensuring that the right data is being maintained and deleted when it's no longer needed. Auditing tools such as Cloud App Security and eDiscovery are highlighting where policy has been breached, and also providing a way of returning that information. And finally, for our managed SOC, the big focus is on Azure Sentinel, which is a cloud native theme. We'll touch on this in just a moment, and we also have a demo lined up shortly. We find the cybersecurity reference architecture has many uses, and we encourage our clients to look at it to learn about Microsoft's capabilities in the security space. And it also can be used as a starting template for designing their own kind of security architecture. So moving on, please, Andrew. So we're going to look now at how Microsoft approached the Security Operations Center. As you may already be aware, there are some key challenges organizations face when trying to operate a modern security posture. First, we have the legacy approaches to a SOC. These approaches tend to have a lack of integration, which can cause waste, with staff being overloaded and spending their time firefighting rather than being proactive. Secondly, we have investigation workflows or lack of thereof. The lack of integration across a range of dispersed security products makes investigation and root cause analysis difficult, with no central location managing investigation workloads. And then finally, legacy models also require much more manual effort to generate any intelligence and can leave security teams evaluating additional products or services to strengthen security management, often increasing that complexity and difficulty when it comes to root cause analysis and investigation. So how do Microsoft approach this? Well, first of all, Microsoft has targeted these challenges and designed their approach to address them by integrating the intelligence using the Intelligent Security Graph. For those not aware, the Intelligent Security Graph is like a key which enables the integration across multiple security providers. Microsoft kind of describe it as an intermediary service or a broker which enables a common schema. So because of this, they have enabled the integration of existing SOC tools with their Graph Security API. They've also provided security professionals with integrated investigation experience across assets with a greater level of visibility into the Microsoft technologies, which is all built in. With Sentinel, as we touched on earlier, they're able to provide a cloud-native SIEM solution to simplify and consolidate, enabling improved detection, investigation, and remediation. In addition, the capabilities within the Microsoft Managed SOC really help to reduce overload and allow for proactive hunting. So that was the Microsoft approach, and we see these as enablers for us and for our clients to run managed SOCs. For those that are still wondering what a managed SOC is, at its simplest level, is a central way for organisations to monitor and respond to cybersecurity threats. However, there is a number of different ways that this can be delivered, with variances and nuances for each organisation. One core way this can be delivered is to outsource the entirety of your incident response and recovery, as well as the proactive hunting to risual, to manage the entire SOC for you. There's also a hybrid approach in which risual can provide incident response and recovery to free up your security teams to focus on that proactive hunting, or vice versa. Finally, risual can provide advice and guidance services to aid your security teams in performing incident management and recovery. risual can advise the changes in the industry, updates to Microsoft security technology, and also act as that advisory escalation service where needed. So I guess the key takeaway here is Microsoft have built security capabilities to ensure that to enable SOCs to secure cloud and on-premise workloads using the power of cloud technology.
Thanks, Dan. That was really conclusive. Thank you very much. So I guess what I want to talk about now is that we do appreciate we're here today to talk to you specifically about our Microsoft Managed SOC. It's really not that simple, and that really isn't the risual way. I think that the key point from us is that we do see security as a journey, and we hope that through risual that journey can become clearer for you and for our clients. We really want to help all our clients by providing an end-to-end model for security, so that no matter where you are on your journey, we've got a service that can help. Our goal isn't just to provide you with a managed SOC, and like I said before, it really isn't that simple anyway. Before you introduce a SOC, we must ensure that we understand your strategy for the cloud and how that aligns to your business and your priorities. We need to understand what technologies you already have in place and how they are used and how widely adopted and well embedded they are. And we need to do an assessment against those different controls and identify where you've got gaps. Then through our guidance on the options that are available and potentially the licensing implications as well, help you to implement any number of those 26 different security products that will really help to secure your organization now, but also protect you for the future. With our approach, we really can start with the creation of a strategy, and if you've already got a strategy, we can then help you deploy the entire Microsoft suite. And if you've already gotten that far on your own, we can then provide you with that managed SOC service, and obviously an element of audit and assurance to make sure that you are working in an optimal way. So we've talked about the managed SOC. Like I say, that it really is a journey, and there's a number of services that we can offer that help you along the way. So our cloud security strategy, we use that to help clients broaden and deepen understanding of their estate. We then use it to provide insights that will empower your security teams to prevent incidents and protect against evolving security threats. We produce a strategy that's based on the Microsoft technologies and really help to visualize and identify a roadmap of activities to manage the security of your modern IT environments. And obviously, we also will look at how that security strategy can help you deliver against and secure against your business priorities and business goals. Alongside the security strategy, we've got a range of audit and assurance services which are designed to get a view of where you are today and then provide you with the guidance to get you where you need to be. An example of that being the identity and access maturity assessment. That will help clients assess the maturity of your identity estate. But then by using products like Secure Score and application discovery tools, it provides a level of visibility that enables us to define the next steps and appropriate ways to mitigate any risk that we identify, both now and then based on strategy in the future too. We can also use this activity to help identify activities that will move you towards a single logon and seamless access experience. And that's for any application or service. So some examples being Google, Salesforce, Workday, ServiceNow, even SAP, and all of that, of course, is achieved by bringing those services through your Azure AD. In addition to our security and our audit and assurance services, we've got a range of services to support you to actually plan and implement any number of those products. We've designed a number of scenarios too, or use cases, which help clients better understand and identify the different options that are available to them, and make sure that they can pick something that they actually need in terms of products and licensing to be able to address their requirements. The first theme is identity and access management, and that's got the mantra of protect, simplify, and safeguard. Within identity and access management, we've designed a number of scenarios which can help clients get a greater understanding of what's achievable. And as per some of the other themes that we'll talk about, these identify the products, but also the licensing implications, and are really good ways to introduce people to the topic. So within identity and access management, we've got scenarios such as zero trust security. We've got securing apps with Azure AD, passwordless, and also identity fundamentals. Identity fundamentals is probably the core proposition, is a great starting point before you begin to layer in some of the additional services. The next theme is Azure security, which focuses mostly on infrastructure, and that has the mantra of cross-platform and cross-cloud. So within Azure security, we've got scenarios for Azure Sentinel, and we have a quick start engagement for that. But we also have Azure Defender and cloud workload protection. Azure security also covers IoT as well. The final theme within plan implementation is Microsoft 365 security, and that has the mantra of discover, protect, control. This covers scenarios for CASB, which actually includes integration and configuration of products like Power Automate, Sentinel, Security Center, Endpoint Manager, Information Protection, Conditional Access, and Defender as well. Endpoint security, which focuses on client devices, and then information protection, which is provided through products like Compliance Center. So whilst we have a number of pre-designed scenarios, I think it's important to say that we can offer much more bespoke services, and generally we do. What we tend to do is we use these themes and these scenarios to start conversations and to be able to help clients understand the art of the possible, really, and help with education as well on what's possible with cloud security. And then finally, there is our Managed Security Operations Center, which we've talked about so far, which again, we've designed a number of scenarios for. Cloud workload protection is aimed at securing all things Azure. Threat protection covers all things Microsoft 365. And then we have assurance as a service, which is delivered quarterly, and that is an assessment that we perform on a quarterly basis against identities, infrastructure, endpoints, and Office 365 to make sure that you're maintaining compliance. And then finally, we also offer a secure DevOps service. So that's mainly aimed at organizations that are wishing to move towards a DevOps model that requires support in setting that up securely, but also support to review code and manage processes and things like that. So just to recap, we do see security as a journey. And this is how we like to try and visualize that for our clients. And what we tend to do is use this diagram to help shape discussions and help our clients understand where they are today and where they need to get to. And also we use it to help shape strategy and design roadmaps where required. I'm now going to hand over to Dan, who's going to take you through a demo of Azure Sentinel.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Hopefully You'll be able to see my screen shortly. So for those that haven't already experienced and become familiar with Azure Sentinel, we wanted to show you a demo of some of its key features. So Azure Sentinel works by correlating the security logs and signals from all your sources across all your apps and services, infrastructure, networks, and users. This is whether they're on-premise or in Azure or in any other cloud. Here on the overview page, we can see a bird's eye perspective of the events going on in your environment. So here at the top here, we can see that security data is already flowing in. We can see the number of alerts. We can also see the incidents, the number of cases, the incident status, whether they're new, active, closed, etc. We can see trends and events and alerts across time. There is also AI capability built into Azure to detect anomalies at the side here, based on the data that you pump into Sentinel. And then it also will place it on a map, obviously, if it does find any anomalies. If we look at some of the data connectors now, because data connectors are the key way that we can start to pull some data into Sentinel. So data connectors make it easy to integrate all of your enterprise security data. There are, of course, connectors for your Microsoft products, such as your Azure AD, your Office 365, and so on. And these can be enabled in just a few clicks. Certain data sources such as the Azure activity logs, Office 365 audit logs, and Microsoft threat protection logs can actually be ingested free of charge. There's also connectors for other clouds such as AWS, and a growing list of mainstream third-party security appliances such as Palo Alto, Cisco ASA, and Barracuda, as well as common event formats like Syslog and Ceph. We think you'll be hard pushed to find a data source that can't be plugged into Sentinel in one way or another. And actually, with Microsoft constantly updating the platform, the list of connectors is ever growing. So Azure Sentinel is actually built on top of Azure Log Analytics, which means you don't have to worry about scale and infrastructure, because all of that is actually handled by Microsoft in the back end. You simply have to focus on the data. That's what we mean when we kind of refer to it as a cloud native theme. You do not have to plan for hardware requirements such as disk space or memory. You simply select what data sources you would like to connect, and the platform will take care of the rest. So I guess once we've chosen some of these data sources, so Azure Active Directory, for example, the next stage is to set up some analytics rules, so we can start to build some intelligence into those. Let's have a look at the analytics. So these use machine learning, as well as kind of rule templates, etc., to detect those real threats and I guess the sea of data. These detections are developed by Microsoft security analysts and are derived from protecting their own infrastructure at massive scale. So we can kind of be confident that if Microsoft are using these, then that's only a good thing. So as you can see, there's a number of rule templates, which we can click on here, that we can enable within a few clicks. So let's take a look at one of these. So I'm going to choose this SharePoint one here. So at the side here, we can see a description, which will tell us about the analytic rule, and also the data sources. If you had enabled one of these data sources, the connector will show up as green. We can also see the query rule, which is based on the KQL query language, which is built into Log Analytics. So yeah, let's create a rule here. So once we get into the rule creation wizard, we can obviously tweak the name and the description at will. We can also change the severity, from medium to high or low or informational. It depends if that's what we want to do. So now we can set the rule logic. So within the rule logic, we can see that this has already been filled in for us, and that's because we used the template. We can also run a result simulation, which will kind of tell us if this rule matches any data that we've already imported into the solution. So we can see here that this particular rule here will fire off some alerts because the data that's already been in here. We can also look at the entities that we might want to map to that. and look at the query scheduling, so how often we want the query to run, and how long back we want it to go in terms of the data. Also thresholds in here as well. We can tweak, and suppression rules. So if we're finding that this is a particularly noisy alert going, into the future, then we can come back in and change that when we need to. Some incident settings to group alerts together, so providing that additional bit of intelligence there. But I guess the key thing in here is really the automated response. So this is a really powerful feature within Sentinel. Earlier we talked about trying to free up your SOC analysts to focus on the proactive side of the job. And I guess the automated response within Sentinel is a way to achieve this. So things such as automatically logging the incident in your ITSM tool, such as ServiceNow or Dynamics, can be taken care of with a simple playbook. Or taking it that step further, you could have a workflow that emails a user, for example, impossible travel alert fires. This could aid your SOC analysts to identify if this was a genuine alert or not. So let's take a look at one of those playbooks now. So as you can see here, we have a playbook. So when a Azure Sentinel alert is triggered, we can go off and get some accounts, get the incident, and then for each one of those incidents, we can write a query to go off and email that user, HTML built in as well to make it look nice. And then based on the response that the user provides back, we can add some comments to the incident, change the status of that, or if it's false, we can again add some comments to say that the user has identified that this was not them. Some further investigation is needed. We can post something to a Teams chat, email the rest of the SOC team if you need to, and you can also take that step further to identify. Perhaps you could have a workflow that disables the user's account, if it's potentially been compromised, or force them to change their password, or run some kind of MFA response. So all these will fire. We're looking back at the rule wizard now. If this particular rule fires, we can tick here to have an automated response, and every time that alert comes in now, it will fire that automated response. So again, adding that particular response in can be really powerful to your end users. So obviously, once we've created that rule, that will show up in the active rule list now. You can see we've already got a number of enabled here. So I just wanted to dig in to some of the incidents that were coming in. So incidents is where once those rules are fired, you'll get an incident that's been created in here. So I want to take a look at one that we've already done earlier. So let's go back to when it was. Here's a simulation that we ran the other day. If I click investigate on one of these alerts, we can see that this particular alert was for a user logging in from outside the UK. We can see that this came from Cloud App Security. We can see the severity of the alert, the status of the alert, the person that is owning the alert at the minute, and the last status time on that. So obviously this spiders alert at the minute, we can kind of see the IP address, the entity, and then the user. So at the minute, we kind of got, okay, so the user's logged in from outside the UK. Maybe that is suspicious because we generally expect this user to log in from the UK all the time. So what I'm going to do is go down to this particular user entity here and click on the related alerts. And now you can see that it's expanded slightly, and I can start to see, there's also other logins from outside the UK. It's starting to look a bit more suspicious now. We can see there's an impossible travel alert. So potentially if the user is working from inside the UK and they've logged in from outside, we're now seeing some impossible travel alerts. And now we've got some successful logins from one IP and a failure from another IP. So by using the built-in investigation tool, we can quite clearly see here potentially a user account could be compromised based on that, and then we can also drill further down into the alert. And as I mentioned earlier, all of this is built off KQL. You can see that the query is already built for me, and I can start to see the history from that particular user based on the query that I've just ran. So that's kind of the power of the investigations. We can also use the analytics slightly further. So I can go into the entity behavior. I can click on the user within here, and I can see the alerts and activities over time. I can click on, I can see the events over time as well within here, when the alerts were firing, and it just kind of gives you that overall visibility into the user, potentially the threat, and that kind of thing. Also, obviously, if you do click on some of these events, again, it builds the query for you, and you can see within here the data that's flowing in. So the sign-in logs, the office activity, you can expand into some of these and see, you know, obviously mail items are being accessed and that kind of thing. So we've covered kind of how to get data in, how to start to apply some intelligence to that data, and then how to investigate that intelligence. We can also look at dashboards within Sentinel. There's a number of key templates that have already been built in. Obviously, if you have the data source required, then you can add these in already. You can also create your own dashboards. So I'll look at one that we've created earlier. So sign-in logs. I can click view on the workbook, and this gives you just some more insight into your activity. So obviously, at the minute we're looking into sign-in logs. We can see sign-ins by locations. We can see the number of successful logins, failure logins. We can drill down into the failure logins, and that will update the table so that all this is interactive. Also, if we wanted to edit or tweak any of these fields, we can edit the actual template itself, which will bring up the queries that's used within the fields. If I click edit on some of these, you can see the query language in there, and in here you can start to tweak some of these queries to change the data that you want to see in these particular tables. Yeah, I think overall, so Sentinel, so once you've discovered that data, it's there. I think the last thing to cover is around hunting. So Microsoft have also aided you within your own hunting as well, by some pre-built queries. So here we have a Azure activity. You can simply run that query and then choose to see the results. Yeah, I think that should give you a general overview of Azure Sentinel. There's lots more features involved with that, but just conscious of time, this was just a quick overview of the actual Sentinel service itself. So if I can hand back to you, Andrew.
Yeah, no, honestly, thank you for that. It was really good. I think there's a few key takeaways that I take from my perspective. What we've shown you there hopefully explains and showcases just how quick you can begin to start analysing alerts. So again, you know, we talked earlier about reducing a dispersed number of security products down to a few. Just with Sentinel alone and bringing all your alerts into one place, you can really start to analyse things in depth and much quicker than it would have been in the past. And on that point that Dan was making at the end, Microsoft analyse over 1 trillion events a day, which helps build some of that knowledge that they're putting into the product. That is all part of the solution as well, and you get those regular updates to alerts, and you can start to utilise some of that experience and knowledge to increase how you respond to events. You know, thinking about the WannaCry event and things like that. So there's a number of things that have happened where Microsoft have reacted. And again, by utilising a product like Sentinel, you can get that fix or at least get that insight ahead of time. So I think that's pretty much all we've got time for today. So the last thing to say really is, if you've got any questions or you want to talk to us about what your journey looks like now, please get in contact and find out how we can help you. And to get you started on your journey to managed security, we do have a number of offers that we think can help. Just aside from the three that are on the screen there, talking about Azure Sentinel, in our experience, you can get Azure Sentinel up and in a pilot state within 3 days, and then you're just going to build on top of that effort where you want to start bringing in external products. So again, Dan talked about the API and how we can link other services that aren't Microsoft, but within 3 days you can have all of your Microsoft products working within Sentinel, and then with a few additional workshops and additional days on top of that, you can actually have a fully working Sentinel solution that could replace quite a cumbersome load of products and potentially extremely expensive range of products as well. So yeah, like I say, some of the activities or some of the services that we've got on offer at the moment to help you get started on your journey to managed security is the identity and access maturity assessment that I talked about. Just as a reminder, it uses products like SecureScore and application discovery tools. It will give you visibility that enables you or with risual a definition on the next steps and appropriate ways to mitigate any risk that we identify now, but also based on what you're trying to achieve as an organisation, mitigating risks in the future. Compliance assessment. This is all about data risk management, and it's basically giving you an example of compliance risks in the data that you've got in your modern work environment. And it also helps you create compelling ways to remediate risk through a number of Microsoft 365 technologies. And then finally, the Cloud Security Accelerator. So what this looks to do is to understand security goals and objectives. It will identify security threats, and we can do that either using a trial license of Microsoft 365 or maybe your existing licensing. We can provide an overview of the entire Microsoft security suite and perform an art of the possible, showcasing some more of the capabilities through a number of demos that we have. And then working with yourselves, we can develop some joint plans and provide recommendations on next steps. So if any of that is of interest, obviously just get in touch with us at inquiries@risual.com. So last thing is a thank you, and then we'll answer any questions that we've had in the chat. It doesn't look like we've had any. So I guess if anybody has any questions, feel free to fire them in now. If not, we'll probably close it down there. Is there anything coming through? Doesn't look like it. Okay, well, thank you anyway. If there are any follow-up questions, obviously feel free to get in touch with us. You can reach out to us at inquiries@risual.com, and hopefully this session was informative, and we look forward to seeing you at some of our other sessions this week. Thank you.